Hi, my name is Yoni Levitan. I'm the Executive Director of Stand Canada, and I'd like to introduce everyone who's here with me for this press conference. On my left is Paul Dewar, Vice Chair of the All-Party Coalition for the Prevention of Genocide, and we have MP Glenn Pearson and Borys Wrzesnewskyj. So before we start, I would just like to make a few comments before the MPs speak, and that's just to really let everyone here realize that this is not something that's happening in isolation, the rally we held today. This is really something that's part of a global movement. There's events that have happened on 6 continents. Over 100 events have been planned, and we're not just here as Canadians, we're here speaking as citizens of the planet Earth, as global citizens. And our message today is that there is a price for indifference, and that we can no longer stand by idly and let what's going on in Darfur continue. Thank you.
Go ahead, son. There were a lot of people at the rally today about the atrocities in Darfur and also in Sudan in general. My job in being there today as a Member of Parliament for London North Centre was to remind people that it's not just about policies and it's not just about the plans we might have. In the end, it's all about people. And I was just reminding them that I had just adopted 2 little children from Darfur just a few weeks ago, and whose mother had been killed, and in going through that experience and trying to help them with their rehabilitation over this last few days, it's been terrible to listen to what these children had to go through. I don't want to recount those things here. Suffice it to say that it's serious and it's traumatic, and I think all of us have to remember at the end of the day that there are hundreds of thousands of children like this that are displaced or lost their parents. So at the end of the day, we can't just allow people to watch these demonstrations on Darfur. We're asking everybody, each and every Canadian, to take part, because at some point it'll involve children like my own. We were lucky enough to be able to get them after 2.5-year struggle to get them here, but there are hundreds of thousands others that are there. And if we don't intervene there, if we don't put the Canadian government's presence there, then those people won't live to have that kind of life. So we're trying to encourage all Canadians to do the best they can, and we appreciate very much Stand Canada for taking the time to put together that rally today.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. About 2 years ago, I was quite fortunate. I had the good fortune to bear witness to an historic event at the UN World Summit. As part of the Canadian delegation, we saw the UN Assembly accept the principle of R2P, the responsibility to protect. And it was especially poignant because it was on the 60th anniversary of the end of the Second World War and the Holocaust. And there was a feeling. There was a feeling there that perhaps when we say never again and not on our watch, that finally those phrases after 60 years would no longer ring hollow. Within days, newspaper editorials had a somewhat different take. They were quite pessimistic. Political reality seemed to be such that the force of action would not take place within that R2P principle. About a week later, I was on a small plane flying into El Fasher, Darfur. And from the plane window, I looked down and I could see a huge internal displaced camp of refugees, over 100,000, probably many, many more. We were met by Canadian Armed Forces personnel that took us in an AMIS vehicle, the African Union Peacekeeping Mission vehicle, into the camp. And we were overwhelmed. We were greeted by hundreds and hundreds of children, like the children that Glenn has brought here to Canada and adopted. Some of the pictures that I've brought back from that visit are pretty horrific. But some of the pictures I like looking at the most are the pictures with all these children and their smiling faces. Each one just a perfect little gem, gift from God. And to think that just outside the perimeter of those camps, there was a death zone. Should any of those children or their mothers go beyond a perimeter of a couple of kilometers, death awaited them. In fact, at that time, there was an attack on 8 villages barely 20 kilometers away, and all the people in those villages were wiped off the face of the earth. We've had a real stalemate in the last couple of years, and the Sudanese government constantly makes claims that, in fact, they are not directly involved. Well, in fact, during that trip, we got documents, ID documents, of which I've got copies, that in those attacks on those villages, there were Sudanese army officers who took part. We have their IDs. And there were Janjaweed who lost their IDs in that attack, and they had IDs issued by the Sudanese government. The Sudanese government is complicit. A genocide has taken place. And today we'd probably be facing a horrific genocide by attrition because they ran out of bullets. It would be a genocide by attrition. If not for demonstrations and rallies like the ones organized today across the world, especially here in Canada, all Canadians owe a debt of gratitude to the youth and students of this country, because we've actually provided the force of action to that principle of responsibility to protect through our students here. And it's high time that our government and all Canadians took part. Thank you.
Thank you, Boris. My name is Paul Dewar, the Member of Parliament from Ottawa Centre, and I want to start my comments off by thanking the students and STAND for bringing this issue not only today to Parliament Hill, but in the past. In fact, STAND has been at the forefront of this issue and has been educating politicians, citizens, and people in general. Today, on the 4th day for Darfur, I'm proud and committed to join the witnesses of this tragic reality in Darfur so that we can stand together to commemorate the story of Darfur. Thanks to the efforts of the victims of Darfur, we have a voice with STAND and other groups. We thank groups like STAND who have refused to let this humanitarian emergency fall from the political agenda. It is important for Canada to support the Darfur peace process. As long as the crisis continues, we must continue to act. Our party has led in Parliament in proposing new and creative policy options to fulfill this role. On the Standing Committee of Foreign Affairs and International Development, we are fighting to initiate hearings on carefully targeted divestment campaign to increase pressure on the Sudanese government and on its international allies to end their violent counterinsurgency attacks in Darfur. We need the Foreign Affairs Committee to take this seriously. When Parliament reconvenes, we will be pushing that issue to the forefront of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Our party presently has called on current and past ministers, in fact, to provide greater support and diplomatic pressure on the government of Sudan. We must use all diplomatic tools, means, resources available to us to ensure the government of Sudan implements the provision of the comprehensive peace agreement with the South. This means, in particular, developing a strategy to support the planned national elections of 2009, helping develop the governing capacity of the Sudanese People's Liberation Movement to act as an effective voice for all of Sudan's marginalized groups in the National Unity Government, and providing logistical support and oversight on the development of new government ministries and agencies developed as part of the North-South Peace Agreement, and this includes revenue sharing. It's time to act, bring a lasting peace to Darfur and to all of Sudan. We reiterate our challenge to this government to step up its efforts, help bring an end to the suffering and the innocent killings of civilians in Darfur. I sincerely hope that the 4th day of action of Darfur can be the catalyst for this critical action. We have to make sure that we don't look away, as was mentioned at the rally. Finally, I might add that presently we are asking that the Canadian government step up to offer support both through troops and other material support for the peacekeeping mission that is now finally getting underway, and this is part of Resolution 1706. Clearly, our government has denied the Canadian reality of peacekeeping and peace building. It is time for Canadians to let their government know we should not abandon peace building, we should not abandon peacekeeping, and that Canadians want them to act now. Thank you.
Thank you. Quickly before we open the floor for questions, I would just like to introduce Bakri Abdallah from the Darfuri Association of Canada, and he has a few words he'd like to say.
Thank you so much. My name is Bakri, and I'm here to represent, beside Stan, also the Darfur Association of Canada. And thank you so much for being here too, and thank you for Stan for all what they are doing for our people in Darfur. The situation there is really, really grave. And my sister-in-law just came last week from Darfur. These stories are really horrific, unbelievable. And every day that we wait, people there are just losing land, possessions, and displaced. And to put it in a nutshell, I think the government of Sudan has engineered this in two phases. Number one is to displace these people from their land, and then the second phase is to repopulate these areas with different ethnic groups, which is exactly started right now. That's what I heard from my sister-in-law. She just came just a week ago. So we've been waiting for so long. To me, as coming from the same area, I do really appreciate that people here in Canada are doing all their best to help or to push to protect the people there. But unfortunately, I don't see any actions being taken. And I've been listening to promises for almost 2 years from now, and I don't see any action being taken. Just last year, there was a proposition, which is the 1706, and which is the hybrid deployment of UN and African troops to Darfur, and I don't see any action being taken too. So I do encourage the decision makers in the parliament to push forward. At least if the deployment of the troop being done, the people at least they feel secure, and then probably they might return to their land. But even if the war, I mean the bombardment from the government of Sudan stop, I don't think that the people will feel secure enough to go back to their land. So thank you all of you for your effort, and I hope that our representative in the Parliament Hill will push this furthermore, so we can take more action. Thank you so much.